Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're tearing into the FY26 consolidated results from Reliance Industries Limited. Now, if you've been keeping an eye on the global markets lately, you know it's been an incredibly chaotic year, right? We've seen massive supply chain dislocations, shifting trade patterns, and highly volatile energy markets. It's been tough out there. Yet, amidst all of these global headwinds, Reliance hasn't just survived, they've posted absolute record-breaking numbers. We're talking about unprecedented growth across their telecom, retail, and energy sectors. It's a really fascinating look at how a conglomerate leverages its domestic scale to shield itself from external shocks. So today, we're going to unpack exactly how they pulled this off.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for the day. First, we'll look at Reliance's record-breaking year, then Jio's role as an intelligence gateway. Third, we'll hit retail's hyperlocal boom. Fourth, energy's volatility. And finally, we'll wrap up with the future of AI and energy.
Starting things off with Section 1, Reliance's record-breaking year, and how they helped hold India's economic course. To really set the stage here, Chairman Mukesh Ambani explicitly called out the geopolitical disruptions and shifting trade patterns that weighed so heavily on businesses worldwide this past fiscal year. But the key takeaway is his observation that the sheer breadth of Reliance's portfolio, combined with a fiercely strong domestic orientation, helped them navigate that external volatility. They didn't just weather the storm, they grew right through it, moving lockstep with the broader Indian economy.
And when we say grew through it, we are looking at a consolidated gross revenue of over 1.17 million crore rupees. To put that into perspective for a second, they have comfortably crossed the 11 trillion rupee mark. That represents a massive 9.8% year-over-year growth. In a year completely defined by global economic friction, adding almost 10% to a top line that is already that large, that's a staggering operational feat.
But revenue is just one part of the story. How does that massive top line actually translate to profitability? Well, EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, surged by 13.4% year-over-year to nearly 208,000 crore rupees. And profit after tax jumped 18.3% to over 95,600 crore rupees. So the absolute crucial point here is that this isn't just revenue for the sake of revenue. They are widening their margins and converting that top-line success into solid double-digit bottom-line growth.
Moving on to Section 2, Jio, the intelligence gateway, and how it's transforming India's digital landscape. Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer gravity of Jio's network. Of their 524.4 million total subscribers, over half of them, 268 million, are already true 5G users. Think about that scale. They aren't just acquiring new users, they're rapidly migrating a huge chunk of a billion-person population straight onto next-generation network architecture. And what are those 524 million people actually doing on that network? Well, they are consuming data at a totally unprecedented rate. In just the fourth quarter of FY26 alone, Jio saw 66 exabytes of data traffic. That's a 35% year-over-year increase. To break that down to a human level, it means the average per capita consumption is a massive 42.3 gigabytes of data per month. That is a whole lot of endless scrolling and streaming. And that intense level of daily engagement is exactly what drove Jio Platform's EBITDA up nearly 19% this year. But here is where the strategy shifts gears. As Chairman Akash Ambani envisions it, Jio is no longer just a telecom provider connecting India to the internet. With this state-of-the-art connectivity and edge compute infrastructure, Jio is actively positioning itself as the principal gateway for the intelligence era. They're literally building the underlying rails through which AI services will reach Indian consumers, households, and businesses. Let's pivot to Section 3, retail. We're seeing a hyper-local commerce boom in the broader Indian consumption story. To really grasp their retail strategy, first have to grasp the physical footprint, which is just immense. Reliance Retail now operates 20,160 stores across the country. In FY26 alone, they opened over 1,500 new stores, and they now operate over 78 million square feet of retail space. This vast physical presence forms the absolute bedrock of their entire retail operation. And that physical space is remarkably diverse. We're talking grocery with over 1,000 Smart Bazaar stores, JioMart covering over 5,100 pin codes, a massive fashion and lifestyle arm that includes Ajio and a major partnership with Shein, plus consumer electronics. This diverse ecosystem of consumption baskets is exactly what drove their annual retail revenue up nearly 12% to over 370,000 crore rupees.
They've essentially built an omni-channel machine that caters to almost every single domestic consumer need. But check this out. This might just be the most exciting metric in the entire report. While their broad-based physical store expansion grew to steady 4.2%, their hyperlocal daily orders absolutely skyrocketed. In Q4, hyperlocal daily orders were up more than 300% year over year. They've successfully expanded this ultra-fast network beyond just grocery to include electronics and fashion, hitting 2-hour and 4-hour delivery promises. They're literally turning those 20,000 physical stores into hyperlocal fulfillment centers. Isha Ambani summarizes this structural shift perfectly, highlighting that fourfold growth in hyperlocal commerce. What's absolutely crucial to take away here is the forward vision. They're moving into FY27 heavily focused on converting this unmatched reach into deeper customer value, using AI-embedded merchandising and much sharper pricing. They aren't just playing for the next quarter. As she says, they are building Reliance Retail for a decade.
All right, Section 4, Energy. Let's look at how they're navigating global volatility and fueling India amidst global disruption.
The global energy market in FY26 was, well, incredibly complex. The war in West Asia led to totally unprecedented dislocations in global supply chains. Reliance had to actively navigate some severe headwinds here, and it's fascinating to watch their operational agility in action. To ensure India's energy security amidst all this chaos, they actually diverted gas from the KG-D6 basin straight toward priority domestic sectors, and they successfully scaled up LPG production to meet national energy priorities.
And the numbers here brilliantly illustrate the financial payoff of that agility. Despite the immense global pressure and supply chain chaos, the oil-to-chemicals segment still managed to increase revenue by 5.7% year over year, hitting over 662,000 crore rupees. Even more impressive, O2C EBITDA actually increased by 10.1%, which was really aided by stronger transportation fuel margins, highly efficient feedstock sourcing, and proactive yield management.
Which brings us to our final pillar, Section 5, the future. We're talking AI, energy, gigafactories, and democratized tech.
So where is this giant ship heading next? The strategic outlook in the report points to 3 massive initiatives. First up, rapid progress in operationalizing their new energy gigafactories, which is going to be a totally transformative contributor to India's green energy future. Second, a huge focus on democratizing access to AI tools for Indian consumers, leveraging that massive geo network. And third, they formally noted they are advancing steadily towards the listing of geo platforms, which marks a defining upcoming milestone for the entire conglomerate.
Which leaves us with this final thought. We've seen exactly how Reliance used its unmatched domestic scale to post record revenues and profitability in what was honestly a chaotic year globally. But as they pivot that immense capital and infrastructure into green energy gigafactories and edge compute AI networks, how will this aggressive expansion reshape the broader Indian economy over the next decade? It's absolutely a space we are going to be watching closely. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.